Women on dating apps ideally want just the 1% of men to get in touch with them, chase them, approach them, and keep pursuing them even after a woman who's a 4 has turned down a man who's a 10 a dozen times. That's the dream for women. But that isn't happening, so women choose to complain on social media how the good men are gone and not approaching them anymore. Even worse, they totally lose it when a Chad or Tyrone ghosts them online. It is really ironic that women complain dating apps are unfair to them. Ladies, there are like 20% of women on dating apps, and 80% of simping men running after you, swiping you right, looking at your profile, and messaging you. You're not going to find your Prince Charming on the first attempt. Please do not be that entitled. Even if we tailored everything in dating to suit women's needs and wants, perfectly for them, they'd still be blinded by their own ignorance, entitlement, narcissism, and arrogance, just to complain because they can't get the men they want. The biggest problem with our generation is people don't know how to put themselves in someone else's shoes. If they did, none of this would be confusing or shocking. I was on Bumble for 4 months, and for 4 months only 2 ladies swiped right on me with only 1 match. And the thing is, I don't even do the numbers game. I really do read their profiles and consider if this is a viable option. And in so doing, I have literally swiped right on hundreds of ladies in my area. Normal ladies, beautiful ladies who seem to have a good head on their shoulders, but only 2 swiped on me. So after 4 months, I said F this and deleted my account. Why? I've been told I shouldn't take it personally, but I do. Call it self-respect, call it vanity, call it pride, doesn't matter. To me, it's the equivalent of going out for a basketball team for 4 months and standing on the side as the captains pick other dudes over me. For some reason, I felt it would be disrespectful to myself to keep putting myself out there for these ladies to have the opportunity to pick me. So I moved on and turned my attention to things I know will pay off, goals I know I can accomplish because it doesn't depend so heavily on another person. And that's the thing with these dating apps and women. Women have the monopoly of supply and demand on these apps. They're low on supply, so they will certainly have multiple guys swiping right on them and wanting to get in touch with them. They also have the monopoly of demand because guys don't have a long list of what they want in an ideal woman, unlike women who want everything in a man. So it's obviously a new sensation for women to be rejected on these apps loaded with men trying to simp after all sorts of women. I feel so bad for a woman who gets ignored or ghosted by an average man. How humiliating. Welcome to our world, sweetie. We need a dating app that matches people only with people who are in the 10% around where they are in terms of beauty rating on the app. So, if you're in the top 10% of women, you will only get access to the top 10% of men and women depending on your preferences, and if you're in the bottom 10% of women, you will only get access to the bottom 10% of men and women depending on your preferences, and the same for men instead of women. Adding to this a visible score out of 10, with a decimal for transparency, will show everyone what score he or she has. There's a special category of women who lurk in the online dating arena. These are women who never really got the attention of men as they grew old. These are women who were overweight and who were considered unattractive by men and women throughout their lives. These are the women who swipe right at every guy they come across on Tinder. Dating is as tough for them as it is for unattractive men. And yet these women live on hope and expect some guy to fall for them online so they can live the rest of their lives just the way they have lived their lives before, without putting in the effort to better themselves. And these are the same women who complain when the Chads and Tyones ghost them. So, what is it that all these women have in common and don't realize? Why do they complain when they don't get attention from men online? Well, these are all women who grew up with men idolizing them and giving them free attention throughout their teens and 20s up to their early 30s. They're used to the attention. They're used to the thirsty men who desperately do anything to get in their pants or have a relationship with them. They're so used to the automatic attention from the other gender that they think they'll still receive it as they go on to their 40s. It's true that some of them might, but that attention will be from naive, low-value men who have nothing better to do with their own lives. The attention they want from high-value men is something they won't get now. This is because men have realized that their time and attention is valuable, and definitely not free. Men are increasingly going their own way after having experienced the true nature of women, and how women use and exploit men for their own agendas. And this is something these women are also slowly realizing today. They know that most men are now of the view that they'd rather live their lives without women than with a woman, and the consequential drama and financial risk associated with being with them. This makes these women, who are now more like online predators, even more, desperate to find a man who can fund and finance their lives. Never feel sorry for any of these women or try to save them because they volunteer to put themselves in that position in the hopes of getting a bigger and better deal. Still, the reality is frequently cruel because all that most of these post-war women received was someone who didn't want to commit to them like they wanted. When younger women are at their prime and easier to find than ever before, why would men prefer to date an older woman? This is especially true in the current economic climate when we are on the verge of another recession and things are getting difficult. Guys with money can choose to date young, attractive ladies rather than old and bitter women. Do you believe that women should expect men to take care of them and never give anything in return than drama and extramarital affairs? Men don't want a wife or girlfriend who is simply dating them because the other men she loved didn't want her. More and more elderly ladies are beginning to understand that men are no longer idiots, and that they have become accustomed to living without them and being much happy as a result. It's important to understand that women don't really respond to your overall profile in online dating. They'll respond if you tick all the boxes they have for the sort of guys they're seeking. For example, they'll swipe right if you're a certain height, if you're dressed like you know how to, if you show that you're well-read and well-traveled. They'll only respond if you fit into the exact frame that they have imagined for the perfect guy. Also, I can imagine that women who are obese, who don't know how to dress or are just not interested, are in their mid to late 30s, and probably swipe right on every man as well. They're at the bottom of the female intimacy marketplace. If they're still unsuccessful, they shift to other dating sites only reserved for digitally alienated people who have no chance of finding someone on other dating sites. Women usually have short descriptions on their profiles and tend to have the same information across their social media and dating profile presence. Descriptions that include typical things such as their love for pets and a repulsion for men who only want one-night stands. Ironically, though, if these women met an attractive guy who checks all of their boxes, they'd be more than willing to have one-night stands with him. They would forego all of their so-called principles and lose their personal ethics to have a chance at a hot fling with someone who they think is hot. And if by chance that attractive man for some reason doesn't sleep with them in the first few dates, they'll start thinking of him differently, because they would have already made up their minds about him and only want him for a fling. For women, it's very important to be socially acceptable wherever they are, including in the online world. Because of this reason, they'll say they're only social drinkers, or that they only want a loving and committed man. We all know they would probably turn out to be habitual drinkers and would be ready for a short fling with anybody they think is highly attractive. They also say they like good food, and that they're foodies. They love reading books or enjoying a cup of coffee. If you scan these profiles, most of them are the same, except for their pictures. And when you meet these women, hardly any would actually be interested in the things they've mentioned in their profiles. They just want to have a socially acceptable online profile and presence. Online dating can be a real pain, especially for men. There are always good and bad sides to online dating, and sometimes men and women have to suffer the consequences of meeting with complete strangers who pose themselves as the opposite of what they actually are. Thanks for watching The Circle of Kings. As always, we're looking forward to your support. So please hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with everything all kings like yourself need to know.